Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Kael Decadence, and you are listening slash watching to, or hearing, or reading, whatever it is, to the Mind Clash podcast. This is episode number 35. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Kael Decadence. I am without my co-host. We have no Merdud. He's playing the hockey stick today, doing some sort of like finals for the Canadian thing. I don't know, that's what Canadians do. But nonetheless, I have with me a few guests. We've got Ashterothi.
Greetings, fellow Imperians. I am Ashterothi, CEO of Aderon Robotics and commander of FedUp.
Awesome. And we got Jurius Doctor.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jurius Doctor, instructor and line member with Iron Armada.
Wonderful. And we've got Joeseph Barnacle as well.
Hello, everybody. I'm Joseph Barnacle. I fly with the scary wormhole people, and I run EVE Dublin.
Awesome. And last but not least, Nikolai Mazinkov.
Hello. I'm Nikolai Mazinkov, chairman of Red vs. Blue.
Yay! So we got a lot of different things, different people here from different walks of life, but we're all here to talk about one thing and one thing only. The topic for today is going to be PVE and NPE, and all things intertwined within it. But first, we're just going to go over a few things. I wish I could go over some EVE news. There's not a whole lot. Unfortunately, CCP has not put out anything lately. I think the latest news that we got was a dev blog. Actually, it wasn't even a dev blog. It's a game news about Plex changes are going to be within the May 9th release.
You know that it's a quiet news day when we all go to war over whether or not we like anime.
This is a true story. So other than that, next week is going to be the May 9th update, which is Tuesday. We're going to be introducing the Blood Raider shipyard, so we can get those dank Blood Raider ships, or capital ships. And that's it. That's it for the news. Good night. No,
Bye.
just kidding. But as far as player news, there's a crazy weird thing going on right now. I guess it's officially being called World War Weeb, or so PC Gamer says.
You know it's official when it makes it to PC Gamer. That is the gold standard.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, what I guess happened, there was an episode of Crossing Zebras a few weeks ago where there was some sort of dispute where people were putting anime into the Waffles forums. The director wasn't too kind of that and said, we're going to ban you. That introduced a lot of hubbub, and then Jintan came out and said, well, I like anime and I'm a weeb, and now Reza wants to go to war with CVA because they don't like weebs. Did I miss anything on that?
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Can I just say that as a hardcore otaku myself, like a long time, I've lived in Japan, I can say that this is the most ridiculous argument I've ever heard of, and I didn't know it was happening to begin with, but I understand them cutting down on the number of GIFs flying through their channels because it does become sort of a verbal diarrhea. And I know that at times when I was with eUni, the Slack channels having Giphy integration built in was kind of a boon and often a curse.
Yeah, I mean, there's like anime features built into Discord from what I understand.
But I also see the other side. Like, if you are, like, we just put into our Discord or Slack, or every channel that I'm in just has somewhere you can put all that kind of stuff that might not belong in a general chat channel that you can get rid of. And if somebody tells you to piss off or purges you from court because you posted some stuff on Discord, then why not just make a new channel for it, just for that kind of thing?
Yeah.
And stop kicking
We
them
have
out.
a hashtag random on our Slack for it because
Right.
it stops people like posting it all in the general chat.
Exactly.
Isn't this really just the same as like My Little Pony and the Brony movement of a few years ago, right? Like, so you've got a few people that are kind of maybe ironically or maybe unironically liking something that may not be as traditionally popular,
Right.
and is positive in nature, like, or I hesitate to use the word childish because anime isn't childish, but it does have those kind of like stereotypes to them, I suppose,
Like,
to say it.
Something usually you think a teenage boy would be into.
Right. So then,
like Gentile.
so then people may, and then of course, once somebody discovers that posting it bothers the leadership, then of course everyone's now a fan of whatever that thing is, and staunch supporters.
I can't wait to see the old bros come back in with their cigar-chewing A-team memes and just try to kind of roll in over top of this. I can't wait to see that happen.
I have a couple of the people you were talking about that like the pony spam, and that's who I had to make the special channel for, just for all the junk. But like I said, if you don't like whatever is being posted, you're either encouraging it to be posted more, or you're finding a new place to put that kind of stuff. Because if you piss off the membership and you send them somewhere else, then of course they're going to go to war with you, or of course they're going to be mad or band together with somebody else who lets them do that.
They don't even necessarily have to be mad. It's just an excuse for content.
Right.
The other thing is that the other thing is that I continue. It's very timely to go to war with Providence, because we know that in the winter, Providence is going to go, in one day, it's going to go from a relatively average region to an extremely valuable region, to then going back to being a relatively average region once you manage to strip it of all of the faction fortizars. So I question the outward motives of anyone who feels that now is the time to take over Providence.
Right. Well, you can't take anything at face value.
Yeah.
But it is funny.
But I do love the "Let My People Go" Moses propaganda that was on Reddit the other day.
There's also something said for taking Providence and holding Providence are two separate things altogether.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what
true
with any war. So it's funny you mentioned the My Little Ponies thing. Just last week, I was bored at work like I usually am, and I started exploring. There has to be EVE fan fiction somewhere, so I just typed in EVE fan fiction, brought me to a website that was like some sort of fanfic hub. I found My Little Pony / EVE Online crossover fanfic, and a Elsa from Frozen crossover EVE Online fanfic.
Have you ever seen the EVE Online orbital bombardment with My Little Pony?
I have not seen
image.
This.
All right, let me get that real quick.
Test made a couple of videos with My Little Pony, didn't it? The Ministry of Propaganda or whatever.
I can ask my brony.
I think
I'm sure he has all of them.
It's called something like Lasers is Magic. It's definitely on YouTube.
Yeah, no, I think definitely anime and stuff like that has its place. It has its place for sure, but I think it's kind of going a little overboard, declaring an all-out war over cartoons.
Well,
people get an awful lot more mad about the My Little Pony stuff, though.
Well, yeah. Well, that happened on 4chan. Like, basically, the exact same thing happened on 4chan. People were posting a bunch of My Little Pony there, and then the mods decided to deal with a little bit too much My Little Ponies by banning it outright, which, of course, made it the most popular thing ever. And that's where the mods are asleep post ponies meme came from.
The thing with the My Little Pony stuff is like an awful lot of the My Little Pony stuff are like sexual, whereas like maybe not all of the anime postings on EVE or whatever are, but it's still people kind of conjure them up as the same sort of idea of like childish cartoon porn or whatever.
So if 3 years ago somebody had told me that I was going to be on a podcast that was completely centered on EVE PVE, and we would open with an open and frank discussion about My Little Pony, what have we done?
Well,
what have we become?
I would say the counter argument to that is that EVE presents a very unique look at anthropology and look at social psychology, and you get this real obvious current in counterculture where the thing that you're not supposed to be doing is obviously the most important thing that can be discussed at any moment in time. And the thing with counterculture is that I think that anytime you get one of these big counterculture movements, you're really hitting on something that George Carlin used to talk about when he would do his comedy routines, which is if you want to know what people really care about, look at what they make fun of. And there's something really intriguing about counterculture and EVE, because on one level, we're all like, some of these people are possibly in their 40s and 50s. Some of the youngest ones are in their teens. But really, to be arguing over cartoons, I mean, are we all emotionally 7 years old?
Well, here's another one to throw in that same kind of pot. How many Trump towers are in nullsec? How many citadels named Trump Tower, or make Mars great again, or all that kind of stuff?
Well, that's just memeing. But I think that what we're really hitting into here is the idea of the secret shame, right? Like, so all these things are kind of against the norm. And so, you know, if people may feel very comfortable to openly mock anime fans, not realizing maybe how many anime fans are within even their inner circle. And that's actually one of the problems that I think some of this has come of this, is that like the people that have stood up against anime, as it turns out, a core contingency of their alliance end up being anime fans because they're everywhere. So it almost has this like Fight Club effect where the leadership tries to take bullshit stands and then the people underneath may not necessarily follow that ideology.
There's actually a recent, I think it was a beer commercial, where they did this social experiment, where they brought a bunch of people in and they painted out boxes on the floor and they put people into all the social boxes they thought they belonged in. And then they said, okay, all of you who are football fans, meaning soccer, come up to the front. And like people from all the different boxes would walk out. And they'd say, all of you who have somebody in your immediate family who's had cancer, and a whole bunch of different people would walk out, and the soccer fans would walk back or not. And it was really kind of the same thing we see happening here, is that somebody at the top decides it's a good idea to go in this direction or shut down on one thing rather than trying to compartmentalize it, and everybody loses their shit.
Yeah. So anyways, the basic gist of it, there's I guess like a reward or an incentive if you are a weeb and you want to continue to have weeb memes and weeb discussions and all that kind of stuff on the Waffles forum. If you go ahead and bring 10 corpses, so if the weebs bring 10 corpses to Reza, you will now have full access to all your weebness. However, what I would call the normies, if they go out and collect 20 corpses, 20 of Jintan, then there will be no anime, no weebiness. So I don't know what the deal is with that, but sounds like fun. Sounds like a great time. It's content, right?
It's content, and it's crazy content, and it may not matter in a month and a half.
No.
But one of the things that's interesting is that especially after World War B, there was definitely a period of time where it was like, well, what's going to be next? And then, you know, there's the casino stuff and the big fear that, you know, the people with infinite wealth were going to just do whatever they want. And then literally they just vanished. And there's been kind of this vacuum about, well, what is going to be the next? And, you know, CCP's obviously thrown all of these big mixes in the pot, but they're not coming into winter. So what do you do about it? And what we're seeing is the next generation of content where it's like, well, this is good enough. Let's go ahead and have a show of it.
Yeah. So
You don't need a reason to fight people.
Yeah, so that's that. Next thing I wanted to bring up real quick, I don't know if anybody's seen it. I know I've seen a lot of it. Dorian Rue has been making waves. Recently he had a little bit on Massively. So in Massively there was an article about it. What he's doing is taking avatars and people's faces and turning them into goofy smiles and putting big like teeth smiles onto the avatars. Unfortunately, I guess Kael's face cannot produce a smile, so I got
I've done
one,
it, and
I got one made especially just for me. I'll put it on screen.
I don't think anybody's deemed it valuable enough to make one for Ashterothi yet.
So look at this face on screen. Yikes, those are not my teeth, I'll tell you that right now.
You're blocking it with my image, or My Little Pony image. Oh, there it is. So what is this like? Is this basically what is it? The voice fixing? auto-tune. So this is auto-tune for like portraits.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yep.
This is how you should have looked.
So anyhow,
That's creepy.
that is that. All right, so I guess with that being said, I mean, is there any other important things that are happening? I don't really think so. It looks like a bunch of garbage on Reddit, like usual. All right, so here we are. Last night, I think all of us here in the stream right now, we're having a conversation last night regarding NPE, PVE. You know, what can we do to make things better? What could CCP do? What's the problems right now? Various discussions went around, even into, you know, just maybe a couple hours ago, we were still talking about it. So some of you might have read my article regarding, you know, what's wrong with the NPE and how can we fix it. I've had some issues from the get-go. I thought, so when Inception came out, this was the release prior to Ascension. That's when the new NPE came out. Just a few weeks after that was Ascension. Alphas came in, started exploring the NPE, and it was buggy, had issues. People weren't able to finish it. They couldn't figure out, like, you know, maybe they took a step ahead and now here they are stuck. What do I do? So there's been some issues. I wrote an article about that back then, but I guess we start off. Let's go from the bottom to the top. Nikolai, what are your thoughts?
So my thought always comes back to it's going to take them a while. Even when I talk to CCP Ghosts, they didn't just talk about fixing the NPE or making it better at getting players ready for the rest of EVE, but kind of guiding them to the right place. I was able to talk to them a little bit and discuss it. I don't feel like it's going to happen anytime soon, and I'm so sick of the CC Please stuff that my bent is always going to be just, we're going to have to find a good path for PvE and for the new player experience to guide people to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you know, so when the Inception came out, I was actually in Afghanistan at the time, and I found myself with a bunch of time on my hands. I went and did the NPE, I made a couple alphas, I ran through it, found some holes, some discrepancies. I went into the help channel, see what was going on. Tons of people, but nobody really had the right answers. There was a lot of people in help channels, but not getting, you know, there wasn't much help happening. So, you know, I tried to do my part by making a separate help channel and starting this initiative and this Discord channel to help people. Didn't really pan out, but like, you've got something involved with that, right? Like,
right. So mine is basically just it's a hub channel that has several channels mixed in with it. But basically the idea is there's one public channel that I can get moderators from any group onto. And because it's a third-party help channel, I can link it in other places. Like you talked about your help channel, you could actually link that into help chat as long as it is not associated with a corporation recruiting or certain other. There are certain rules that do have to be met. It's really hard to do, but basically you can get people in there, and there's a hub for anybody who's doing NPSI, any public information, training fleets, all that kind of stuff, and we're adding to it. So they're really not very populated yet, but I am working on kind of fleshing them out a little more.
Now,
but basically the idea is one of those channels is specifically for information, mission help, and all that kind of stuff. So
now either the people in that chat or in the help channel really like you, or the moderators really like you, because anytime I went in there and said, hey guys, I'm starting this new help channel, it's direct one-on-one support, I'll get on comms with you, this is not associated with a corp, I just want to help you guys. Oh my god.
They're very tight on that. Yeah, they're very serious. They think you're trying to scam half the time.
It wasn't just a scam, like, oh, we don't need that kind of stuff here, we don't want your help, we don't want you recruiting, and I'm like, well, you know,
it isn't personal. I mean, Mike Azariah, who's been doing the Magic School Bus for years, just told me, I think a week ago, that he was finally told that he can no longer talk about the Magic School Bus in chat. And it wasn't anything that he necessarily did. It's just they finally decided that it was too close to advertisement.
So here's a guy we're talking about who literally just takes a bowhead and goes from rookie system to rookie system, handing out free ships. He goes, hey guys, I'm here to drop off some ships. X up if you want one. How the hell is that advertising?
Because you're dragging them into fleet is the only way.
No.
Is the way they get around that.
Nope. What he does.
Didn't he say you have
Well,
to
I'm
accept
not
the
going to speak. Not going to speak to the details. I think he just asked for people to dock up. But
Yep,
my
just
point is
dock
that
up.
they strongly err on the side of that's just not where that's for.
Right.
There are recruitment channels that are good for that kind of thing. It does create a. I mean, it's a really tricky situation because if you think about it, CCP has to be as protective as they can possibly be, because if they allow something bad to happen, the worst thing that happens will come back, and then CCP will be held, like if heaven forbid they be tied to something illegal or anything like that. Like they have to show that they're not supporting something over another, and that is a strong thing of theirs.
The in-game help has to be like ISDs helping people like solve game problems and learn a bit. But the problem with that then is that finding out the deeper level of other communities, like how do you point someone at another community or another help organization if you're not allowed to tell them about it? You can't go around and spam local,
Right.
and then people can't find out
Yes.
because they don't know it even exists to begin with.
Yeah,
That-
Right. But I
All
think
of that.
that's a larger problem, right? Because if you think
CCP
about
themselves
it,
doesn't know how to get around this issue. They don't know how
Well-
like CCP guard told me about how he sat on a plane for 8 hours before, and the person played EVE for like 10 years and didn't know who he was.
Now,
right?
if
Well,
I'm
that's-
thinking- so one of the things that I found, and I've spent a lot of time in Help Channel, both when I was with eUni, because I was legitimately just being there to help answer questions, and also, since I've hung out since, I found that the ISDs have gotten a lot better about answering questions and being very helpful in my time zone in particular, which is later US time zone, like US West. But I found that the thing that is a real problem and continues to be a real problem is that they shut down things like Magic School Bus, but they still continue this almost acidic culture of like pessimism to pervade the help channels. Like people don't even want to ask questions because they're so toxic.
Yeah,
It seems like they're more concerned with moderating it than they are to actually helping.
Yeah, exactly. I just said that into the Twitch chat. Absolutely, I agree. I always have the help channel open, and I've been leery about going into it as of late because there was a good couple weeks where I was going in there every day and spending about an hour to 2 hours at a time answering questions, helping people, and sometimes it would get to the point where they'd start saying I was trying to brag and you're just trying to spy and get people in and this and that, and it's just like, guys, I'm just trying to help. And then like next thing you know, like, we're gonna report you to ISD and this, that, and the other thing. It's just I'm done.
One of the workarounds that it sucks to say that this is the way you have to do it, but it's just a private convo. Be like, hey, if you want help and you're not getting it, go here.
Well, see, and exactly with that though, I would say that I would say, hey, I'm here to help you guys. If you want to help with a specific thing, hit me up. Just ask me, right? And immediately,
well, the problem is exactly
you convo them.
You convo them.
Yeah.
You can't say that into the chat, and that's
if you're seeing somebody getting held, like getting the runaround, then you just convo and be like, "Have you gotten your answer yet?" And then go from there.
Yeah,
also, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to start it off with, hey, if you do think this is a scam, don't go ahead with it, and be aware that there are people who scam, and basically say a disclaimer at the start of your chat, so that like if someone cries wolf, that logs support that you weren't trying to scam or whatever, because ISDs will jump on you like a brick if they think you're scamming in private chats as well.
Yeah. Well, so my point is that the issue that we have here is that we're trying to fix the wrong tool, right? So Rookie Chat is designed for a specific purpose, which is to answer incredibly fundamental failures in usually the tutorial, right? There's a reason why you actually get kicked out of Rookie Chat within the first little bit. And then the normal help, you have to like apply, you have to actually join, right? So the Rookie Chat has very, very strict rules because it has a very strict purpose. And we kind of are using it for the wrong purpose. The issue, as I've said before, is that EVE doesn't teach itself. EVE doesn't, we've created this environment. We've accepted these truths about EVE. Like, people that don't meet up with another person in the first 2 hours, and 95% of them quit. And we've taken that to mean, well, how can we make sure somebody meets them in the first 2 hours? When really it should be, how do we make EVE interesting enough that they don't quit after 2 hours?
Yeah.
And they can fucking find somebody and have some fun together, right? If EVE provided you a solid 3 to 6 months of just really good gameplay before you ever decided to do something with another person, if you wanted to, not that you had to, but just it was there, then we would have huge amounts of retention, because in 3 to 6 months, that's plenty of time to run into somebody. The problem is that we just don't have it.
They're definitely working at this new player experience is definitely already better than it used to be and a little bit more engaging. And I think with the new PVE stuff that's more kind of dynamic, that this is going to kind of push towards in maybe a year from now, when you're going to start the game, you're going to start meeting PVE NPCs that are nearly like players and much more engaging, even as a noob, and maybe that'll help.
Yes, and of course I've been the one writing for years about how to change PvE or what I think that they're going towards when it comes to more dynamic, more kind of feels lived in universe that you're interacting with, and so on and so forth. A high sec that's based around engagement and education. But the problem is that we still have some pretty fundamental psychological truths that we hold on to that may be counterproductive. And one of the things I was concerned about was how much CCP was asking us about PvE and about the NPE in FanFest, not necessarily because players are not smart, but the thing is that the players that will enjoy a good PvE have already quit the game. They're not the people, the people who are playing the game are the people that enjoy the core experience that EVE has right now, which is great, which is the PvE and player or PvP and player interactions and that kind of stuff. We don't have a strong PvE player base because we don't have a strong PvE.
I was going to say it's that you're missing the votes for the people who, who quit.
Right. So what we have to do is we have to find the purpose of the game and then allow people to be attracted to the game and live in the universe long enough to understand things. I actually was ratting. I've started ratting just to try it out again. And just total AFK V and I ratting, but still, what?
Yeah, it's a grind.
It is a grind, but it gave me an opportunity. After like an hour, I'm a little bit bored, and so I switched it over to tactical camera, and I kind of changed the thing, and I spent like an entire Haven not paying attention to my overview at all. I did all of the commands from in the actual like in space view, and it made me make more money because I was choosing an efficient path for my drones, and I understood a little bit more what was going on. Now, what's nice is that I was in a safe environment where I didn't have to do that. But at a certain point, I get comfortable enough what's going on. I challenge myself to learn a little bit more. And so I've practiced that skill a little bit more. And then maybe if I get carriers, it'll allow me to practice carrier stuff. So that way, the first time I jump into carrier, I'm not feeling like I'm an asshole. But because the problem is that that's going to cause me to never jump in a carrier, right? That's not just risk aversion. There's just a certain amount of like, you don't want to get embarrassed. And so if you don't have a PvE that gives you confidence that you not only are cool, but are good enough to contend, then why would you take that step into the arena?
Right, but one of the things that CCP has already said is that they want to build on the niche they have, and I think that might make them take that into account less. The idea that we're talking about, that the vote of the player that has already quit is not going to count towards improving PvE, improving the NPE, making things more engaging, because they're going to be worried more about the player that cares more about the sandbox and PvP and everything else than they do about.
They probably want to focus a little bit on why players are quitting and not staying with the game. That's kind of an important.
Right. I just mean that they've already said Siegel and what is the head of CCP, not the producer. Right. He said that he wanted to build the niche that they already had in EVE more than they were focusing on. The draw and changing it.
That's all fun and games, but guess what? We're not getting any younger. Eventually,
Right. I mean,
eventually
they've
we're
also
gonna
said
all
that they
die.
want to. I mean, they've said that they want to definitely keep focusing on their core audience, which is true. And what I'm suggesting doesn't do that, right? Or doesn't not do that, rather. Like, it doesn't take away from that. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a powerful, robust player interactions. I'm not even saying that anything in the game should be taken away. I'm saying that we have core assumptions about PvE. We assume that it's repetitive. We assume that it's safe. We assume that basically all PvE should be measured in how much ISK it's worth. But there are many games that don't have those core assumptions. And so I'm not saying that we can't cater to the same niche. What I'm saying is that, you know, the things that we like about EVE, we can attract more people that like those things, that niche, but they're being blocked before they can make it through the door. They're being stopped at the barrier of understanding, not at the at the barrier of like acceptance.
Yeah, but
Now,
that's why.
Sorry, going on that direction. One of the things that you mentioned, Ash, that I think is really good is that, you know, and Kael said it in one of his articles, is that there's a missing environment for safe practice of skills and building of your skill set, and the idea of having like a training room or you know, think your Star Trek style holodeck where you have a safe enclosed instanced environment where you can practice your fitting, practice your skills without having to like load up the full CC experience to get into. That could be part of that new EVE to get you in the confident mind to start approaching those things, and then set up the NPE so that it continues almost as like a secondary EVE within EVE, so that you slowly coax new players into things like cooperatively running missions together or running through PvE experiences.
We had a
in
chat
groups.
about this at FanFest. It was really interesting. CCP Rise brought it up about how like they're really looking to try to not just get back old players, but get in new players and keep on to them longer. And he was genuinely throwing out the idea and asking for suggestions about what would EVE players think about instant PvE, instanced, like the way WoW does it with like dungeon raids that you could either do as a newbie corp or with like your existing corp, so that people would have sort of a maybe not safe way to PvE, but sort of an instant PvE they could do together, sort of.
Well,
Like,
I don't
instancing.
like the idea of instancing
no,
necessarily.
people were really not liking it.
Simulation.
I think the connotations around instancing are putting people in a bad mood and a bad thought on things that colors it. But the way I think about instancing is a really, really good way to release additional lore content or to work people through the history of some of the events in EVE.
Yes.
So what if you could go back and you could engage with battles that have already happened in the history of EVE as though you were there?
And
that's the biggest problem with the story, is that it's always evolving in this continuum, but there's so much of it that like this one live event that was done like 5 years ago on Caldari Prime, that no new player will have any clue what the hell they're talking about. Like,
So,
and
you
that's
know
what
what would be crazy about that? No. Let's talk about that for just a second, because you just had a brilliant idea. So if we could have legacy fights, and they introduced it with like Dak Atioth and a few of the other like legendary fights of lore that we've heard about, and have you be able to fly in it. And then what they do is whenever a huge fight like MTACO or BTAC-R happens, they actually release those into the simulators. So then people could go and be in BTAC-R, and because it's your instance, it's not tie-dyed. You could live through BTAC-R in real time.
oh
That
god,
would be insane.
And that would be beautiful because you could actually set it up so that the replayability of those events becomes like playing Hitman. Okay, last time I went through and I did it this way. Now what happens if I go in a battleship?
And if you think about it, military commanders would love that too. Like, that is such a development that people would want. Like, I'm not even talking about like players would want. I mean, like, in-game, out-of-game, like that would be such a powerful tool for the leadership to understand what's going on. That's the biggest problem that EVE has right now, is that it's got terrible feedback to the players. When you do something wrong, there's very little way to suss out what you did wrong. You know, it's just like, oh, now I'm a wreck.
Yeah. I'm in a pot. What happened?
poof.
You guys know I wrote a whole article about that, right? Called The Training Room.
Yep. But this also, because it segues, we're talking about the immersion and the PvE and the NP and all that kind of stuff wrapped together. And I do think that those instanced PvE environments would be awesome, whether it was old battles or new lore or whatever it is added in. that'd be fantastic. But this also segues a little bit into war decks. I don't think we should go there necessarily. That would be the next 5
go back
hours.
To something,
but it does.
To go back to something you said, Nikolai, earlier, which was one of the things that people encounter in help chat is that you go there and they're like, no, it sounds like you're recruiting, go away, this is the wrong channel for that. When really what you're trying to do is say, I'm going to help you, and you know what, let me point you in the direction of a corporation that has exactly what you're looking for in terms of play style, in terms of what you want to get out of EVE. And they're like, you're recruiting. I'm like, no, I'm sending them to somebody else's corporation because they
you're a
wouldn't fit.
secret spy recruit, though.
Right.
Yeah.
So obviously the distrust comes in, but I feel like one of the things that would need to go with that new instanced PVE, or like the expansion of the PVE experience, as slowly working them into, you know, getting out of the shallow end and getting into the cold water, rather than having this short NPE that feels like a splash of warm water in the face and then you get thrown in the North Atlantic. You end up with this situation where part of that experience is having ambassadors who work to start pointing them and getting them on the idea of going, you have experienced these playstyles, and based on how you've moved through the NPE and these instance things, I see you doing a lot of, you know, exploration and not a lot of PvP. Hey, Signal Cartel would be great for you.
Right. So, and one of the things that's crazy about that is, like you said, CCP they'll come down, the ISDs, especially in help chat, they'll come down so hard on people who are trying to help because they err too far on one side. But then you look at some of what players have done and still not gotten banned from the game, like real life threats, like harassment, like all those kinds of things.
Doxing.
That there's
$75,000 for a fight.
You know,
Yeah, it goes back to that
it's just
psychology thing. Like, at this point, our own psychology is defeating us. So we have two things that are true about EVE. One, in order to do well as a new player, you pretty much have to. Whoa! When I hit puberty, that'll stop happening, right? So you pretty much have to like link up with somebody if you want to be successful. But also, everyone who joins EVE pretty much knows two things about EVE. One, it's spreadsheets in space, and two, you don't trust anybody. Yeah. So how do we have new players with the core assumption that they have to find somebody and then trust them, but yet the only thing they know is to not trust anybody? And we wonder why this doesn't work.
You know, I mean,
right?
It's unfortunate. Like, yes, all these ideas are great, but you get down to that problem where there are those toxic EVE players, and there are those groups of people who will go, oh yeah, I'm gonna go be a mentor, and you know, they just wreak havoc in there. They try to recruit all these people, and then, you know, they just turn it into this big, you know, toxic environment. It's all spurgy, you know, it just ruins it for everyone. And then we're gonna be right back in full circle where we're like, you really can't trust anybody.
I think ISD needs a special title that they can give out to people who do that. That's just douche nozzle, and just put it on their profile, and it's permanently there, and everybody knows to avoid those people.
The kind of people who want to elect people as CSM so that they could have a nuclear option, but then he actually doesn't do that. You know, those kind of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to vet people, you know.
The rookie chat is like that, so it automatically kicks people out of a certain amount of time, or after you do certain things, you're not allowed back in there. But there are certain people in the community that are trusted to be let back in there, not just CSMs.
Yeah, like Mike Azariah, for example.
But it doesn't do enough because you don't have enough of them. You don't actually let the help channel be that resource, and you just put the ban hammer down on everybody in that channel.
Again, there's also something said for not crowding the channel full of like 20 really helpful people that could be they could be recruiting or they could be spamming. And we've all seen the really terrible spammy chats where people are just talking like it's, you know, it's normal day to day, and it's just GIFs and like spam everywhere.
Yo, there's this guy who's constantly in the EVE help channel. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but this guy's in there every day, and he's just talking shit and wants to talk about how Trump sucks and, you know, I hate Hitler and all kinds of stuff. You're like, what? Why are you in here? And, you know,
Kael, you need to just apply for the CSD or for the ISD and get done with it.
I think it'd be too much of a headache. I don't think I could deal with that.
Being an ISD is tough. You can't even tell people you're an ISD.
Yeah, I would probably end my EVE career just in general. But yeah, so it's crazy in there. You see all this talk, and they don't get anything said to them by the ISD, and you go, hey guys, you know, I'm trying to help people out. They're like, oh, get out of this channel. It's crazy.
Right, but this goes back to my point. In what game is it acceptable to basically just assume that somebody will require help chat to make it through the tutorial. Right? Like,
exactly. No other game does this, where you actually have to go and watch YouTube videos just to make it through the tutorial.
Yeah, every question that's asked in help chat should be on a whiteboard. Like they should have a bot in their own in help chat, and every time a sentence with the question mark at the end of it is made, it should pull it, and then they should codify, and every question that's made, they should have an answer for it. But you know what I mean? Like,
I would modify that. I would say that the bot runs and then it private convos the person so that it doesn't spam the main channel.
No. I'm not talking about doesn't do anything public, but I'm saying that CCP should be tracking like literally every question that comes up.
Absolutely.
Because
what bugs me about that
because
is
if
that they have that in the form of their flight center. All of the common questions and all the basic introductions are in their flight center, and even they don't push it. Yet they went to the effort of making hundreds of hours of content.
They also made YouTube videos eventually as well, and they don't even link them anywhere. They finally got around to linking them in game, but they're not really obvious.
They're not obvious at all.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about.
Also, there's not hundreds. There's like they're not even close to 100 hours, because they're all like 2 to 3 minute videos, and there's 40.
I found out why they don't link them though as well. They don't link them because they don't want to break immersion. And there's a couple of like super or lore nerds in CCP that don't want anything like out of game to break into the in-game, like with Aura.
Did you know they didn't actually put their like explanation of alpha clones and all that until like 3 months after alphas already came out?
There is so much stuff that is not put into videos. That's the problem. Like I keep recommending those videos too, and I've said the same thing. Like, why are they pushing these videos? But then the few times that I've done it and been like, let me find a video for you. Like, over 2/3 of the time, there is no video for it, whatever it is.
Stand by, everyone. We have a wild mare dud in the audience.
Greetings.
I guess I gotta put him in somewhere. I guess I'll just have to move My Little Pony somewhere.
Oh, I guess I'll have to move him. Too bad.
Can't Mare just be the My Little Pony? Can't we all just pretend that is the picture?
I am super soft, so... Hello, everyone. I too am a PVEer. Is this the PVE help group?
Don't ask me any questions if that's really what this is.
I've learned this week how to faction warfare PVE, so I am now expert of all PVE. -1 Proteus, but expert.
Oh, jeez.
About sleeper caches. Have you knocked out caches yet?
I've done the lesser one. I haven't done the superior.
Where did you jump in, Mary Dad? What have you heard?
But doesn't this, what we were talking about, kind of come back to the problem of not everybody even knows what resources are out there? Yeah. Like, there's so many of them, and some of them are so old. Like, we have this with our own forums. But there's information there that people it's kind of just hyper information.
Yeah, so one of the core engagements of EVE is discovery, right? And in EVE's case, it's mechanical discovery. The value of knowing more about the game than your opponent is extremely valuable. And that sounded super redundant, and if I ever wrote it, Crossing Zebras would slap me in the face. But what I'm trying to say is, like, I made the comparison before the show to Dark Souls. In a lot of ways, EVE is the same way. When you're first brought into it, there's nothing about the game that allows you to understand it, right? It's just walls of information and stuff, and it's very overwhelming. But only by accepting the fact that you won't understand everything and starting to learn it and do it and picking pieces at a time and assimilating it, do you slowly become a master of it. And that journey from inexperienced to knowledgeable, I think, is truly not something that we give enough credit for when it comes to why we love EVE.
I think that's what most EVE players would say, is that you have to go through that trial to deserve to stay here.
So I'm not asking that trial to be removed. I'm not asking, like, this is something that happens anytime somebody's talking about, like, adding information to the overview or anything like that, or to, the UI. you don't necessarily want to make it so that people don't have to make the decisions. But like, for instance, the probing changes are a good example. The probing channel changes did make it more simplistic, but it made it so that the true challenges of exploration could better be unlocked, if that makes sense. And in the same way, I think that EVE needs to make it so that it's better at teaching us while not necessarily being an easier game.
Yeah.
Like EVE taught me this week that Valkyries with a drone nav can't catch a Dramiel, and that when you lose a Proteus, you lose that level 5 Galente engineering skill.
Is that true? I've heard this as well.
I guess so.
One of the greatest things about EVE is that there is just so much information, right? Like, I talked to somebody, I've had somebody teaching me the ropes for like some of our nullsec ratting stuff over the last couple of days. And then I said, well, why don't you just use a gecko? And they never heard of a gecko, right? And that's one of the fascinating things about this game is that, you could, even when I was, a month into the game, I was talking to people that had years into the game. And, if you dig into the theory crafting, you may find something that they've never even calculated just because there's just that much.
That's one thing we've come across with some of our training is that I've told people, no matter how new you are, you know something that somebody else doesn't know. And so we just promote people to do that kind of stuff, to do that cross-training, like teach somebody something they don't know yet, because that's kind of what I started doing. Like, there were things that I didn't know that I'd learn, and then I'd turn around and teach them something new. Kind of my lucky mistake was enlisting in faction warfare with like a 3-day-old tune. I didn't know what D-scan was, but I got a couple fights and I finally got a kill once. So I kept figuring it out.
Oh,
2 of the reasons I created my alpha was actually to experience that, partly to get into the rookie help chat and find out how people were being treated as new players, using a character whose name doesn't follow any of my normal naming scheme. And then the other side of that was to be able to have a false face where I could just go and ask some of the questions that I myself was embarrassed to ask.
The other thing is that the features that help are not the features that we think of all the time. Like, we actually brought up the idea of the simulator. The fitting simulator is so huge in EVE because it allows people for the first time to understand their decisions when it comes to fitting. And people may say, oh, well, you've always had PIFA. Screw that. There's nothing in EVE that says, okay, you have come... Right, there's no pop-up that says you've hit the limit of your understanding of mods. Now go get PIFA so that you can do fittings. That doesn't exist. So the fact that now the game itself has a tool that doesn't, it's not a tutorial. There's not some pedantic person talking to you about how you're either dumb or great, depending on how far along you are in the tutorial. It's just, here's the tools, tinker with it. There's red numbers and green numbers. It makes sense. Now go understand how ships work.
Well, just ask go look at your first tune's Cheetah hanger if you never cleaned it out. Like, what did that look like before you knew about PIFA or any of the other tool, EFT, or before you had the in-game fitting tool simulation?
Hold on. First,
when you had to actually buy it before you knew what it was going to look like.
Your first character knew where Jita was?
I figured it out. That took a couple months.
That blew my mind too. So I was in a help channel and somebody was like, where's a place that I can go to buy stuff? And I even said, I was like, well, you could go to Jita, just don't look at the chat. And somebody's like, you're recommending him going to Jita? I'm like, I'm recommending him go to Jita to buy stuff.
I was in faction warfare still. I got killed. When I got there finally, I got scammed. So my second tune was my first neutral hauler, which I still own to this day.
Hey, so Morgan Starkiller brings up a good point in the chat, and she says that I love games that shit talk you when you're doing something bad in game. So besides EVE, some of you might know that I like to do some homebrewing. So I'm also into homebrewing forums, and there's actually homebrewers subreddit as well. If I were to ask a question, and even online, like, hey guys, how do I do this? Does it look like a good fit? I'd immediately have, dozens of people, you're fucking retarded, that's dumb, why don't you just kill yourself, just quit the game, don't even play, give me all your money, give me your ish, just leave, right? But if I post a question into a brewing forum or really any other forum, I say, like, hey guys, I have a question about this. What malt should I use for this, or what hop should I use for that recipe? And they're like, oh, hey bro, yeah, let me help you out. You should try this, tweak this a little bit. Maybe try to dial it back on this. No hostility whatsoever. Why is EVE like that?
There are people like that in EVE, though. There are plenty of people who run a lot of newbie-friendly groups and podcasts and, stuff that do that. It's just there are people who do the opposite.
I think it's because it's just, it's easy to give the easy answer. This is actually just a true story about that. I've been driven close to quitting EVE a few times. One of the first times that I actually, quit or almost quit, and I'm talking about just thinking about it, was when I was in the early days. I was listening to podcasts, and they had, and I'm not going to name them or anything, but they did a very frequent topic on a lot of podcasts, which is just taking a fail-fit death and crapping on it, right? But they didn't explain what was wrong or why it was wrong. They would just list the things and laugh and make jokes. And so from me, as a not very experienced player, I looked at it and I could not comprehend. I was like, well, okay, there's a couple of things that are weird, but I don't know if it's worth all that. And so now I feel bad because they're now laughing and I don't understand why. And that can drive people away. Absolutely. So it's interesting. You're right. People don't actually answer the questions. They give more top level recommendations as opposed to mechanical answers often.
Well, I think the EVE culture goes both ways. You do have those really helpful people, but the people you find on Reddit and the forums aren't usually those people.
Now, going back to what I think more, what she was actually saying about the game talking crap to you, I actually agree. Before the revamp of Aura, actually back in the way days, there's an old voice line of Aura. When you die for the first time, she laughs at you.
Yeah.
Which is the best.
And it's the greatest thing ever, because if you think about it, what is the one thing that somebody needs to have happen at that moment of frustration and confusion? They need to know that it's no big deal.
Right.
And so that kind of polite, if they actually upped the sarcasm a little bit on Aura, so that way when you mess up, she would point something out to you, that actually you could actually develop a relationship.
I would go a step farther. I would say that not only should she laugh at you, but the beginning of all of my fleet classes, the very first thing I say to new bros is not that the golden rule of EVE is that you shouldn't undock anything you don't want to lose or can't afford to lose, but that's the wrong attitude to take. Rule number one is you will lose ships. It's going to happen. It will happen eventually. It may not happen right now, but it's like living in New York in the 1980s. You're going to get mugged.
So one of the takes one of my guys put on it, and he started writing his own blog, and he does some videos every now and then, was exactly that, though. It's that instead of laughing your fit or telling you what's wrong with it or telling you a better way to do it, start at the bottom, because there is something even a guy who's been in the game for 2 hours can understand, and he was trying to do something. And so that's where he starts is, okay, what are you trying to do with this? Are you trying to go fast? Are you trying to do an active tank? What's he trying to do? And get in their mind instead of saying, no, that's wrong, that's stupid, quit. Or here's a better idea, just do this one. Start from the beginning and get into their mind and help them see what will do what they want to do.
See, I feel bad because last week or a couple weeks ago, I was making fun of people for bad fits.
Well, and it's fine I make fun of people for bad fits too, but I explain exactly why. If they fit a mag stab when they should be fitting a heat sink, they should feel bad.
Well,
or at least they should know
make
why.
Fun of.
Well, no. Let me get one thing straight. If they go out and lose a ship with mag stabs instead of heat sinks, they deserve to be made fun of. But then explain to them why.
We make fun of people flying off doctrine ships for the same reason, because there's a doctrine for a reason. It's supposed to perform this way. But those are people who should know better, So it's funny to make fun of them. It's not like you're making fun of a new guy or whatever.
I will say, though, Ash, my new hobby is killing stabbed plexers because of my Mollusk Navy that has 8 points of scram.
Molly Navy, the Mollis Navy issue was literally invented for that. Like when that came out and everybody was like, I don't get it. I'm like, oh, I totally get it.
I was so happy.
We definitely tackled a venture today in my first Malice Navy, and I waited for 2 more Malice Navies to show up. He had 1 minute, 30 seconds left in his Plex timer. We waited till 15 seconds and explained to him our disapproval of stabbed farmers.
That's awesome.
I immediately looted and trashed the stabs when I got him.
We then killed him like 10 seconds before his timer was.
I don't
And then I
actually
had
run
to
into
rep my
Plex.
sex status.
I don't run into Plex like stabbers that much because I usually just find a Plex and sit in it and let people come to me. So
I'm gonna start rolling with you guys a little bit more. You guys have a lot more fun than I do. So, all right, we've talked about, what are some of the current problems. We've talked about, what CCP could do to make it better, what we could do to make it better. Talked about the help system. One thing I wanted to bring up was Mosquito God, who was on the show a few weeks ago. He was at FanFest, and he talked about, or he mentioned to us today that in the PVE roundtable, or the discussion that we didn't get to see, but I think it might be up now. CCP Go said that one of the issues they have with making the NPE more than what it is, and getting all the voice acting is, number one, it's going to be hard logistic, or what he said, it'd be hard to get voice actors, and it'd be too costly to get voice actors. So what I immediately thought was, you have podcasters, you have streamers, you have parody song singers, you have guys like Zendane and all the actors that do the Chronicles.
it's just
so plenty of other game companies have voice actors. It's not too expensive.
The other side of that?
It's not just cost, first of all. It's also a matter of like obligation, right? So like a good example of voice acting that's had a shit ton of money thrown at it is Overwatch. They didn't just hire, most of the time in gaming, and your voice actors are just one-offs. They come in, whatever, especially if you're doing it in Iceland, if they have to ship them up to Iceland or to their other office in England to do it, like that's a big thing. And then let's say in a year or two, they want to put more in for that character. They're going to have to still be able to go back to the same people again.
Right, which is
That's why they redid Aura. Yeah.
And which is why I'm saying that if you had the players do it, who wouldn't just love to lend their voice to be, Commander so and so of the, Caldari militia, or who wouldn't love to be some
later
research?
Disgrace and quit. Like that's my point. Like,
But
You get a new commander and you kill him off.
If you make the important players the people that are the paid voice actors, you can still get them in a scene or in a
Yes, it's
you can get them somewhere with somebody who is disposable. So
Kind of
I
like
said, it doesn't
the
have
This
to
Is
be
Eve
the
video,
commander.
Yeah, but
where
you
they
know
used
what?
all the voiceover from TeamSpeak.
First obvious choice is going to be Space Pope. I mean, if anybody in all of
You're
EVE
right.
is going to be doing any voice acting, Chuck's got to be in there.
And
Yes.
Zendane.
I think there are definitely opportunities there, but what I'm saying is that I think that looking for obligation or ways around it might still be a better option. The cost is very high. Localization is a huge issue.
Yeah, true.
Cost
If
being
you-
what it is, though, if you said to me as a player, you're paying $10, $15 a month to play this game for one account. You've got 4 or 5 accounts. How would you feel about paying $5 a month into the development fund to pay for all this extra stuff to make it come to your door faster, to accelerate this timeline? I think every subscribing player in EVE would probably say $5 a month. Shit, yeah, sign me up.
No, it'd be massive outrage. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I don't.
They
think
said
that
we're
would
going to
go
put
over well.
skins in the game and charge for them, and for like 6 months, everybody went totally like crazy. even though they're like novelty items, everybody like blew up Jida because they're like, "Oh, you're monetizing pay to win, blah blah blah. Oh, this is just a money grab." Like, no,
Yeah, it's
outrage.
and that's part of the
Counter-
problem. This actually goes back to like the dojo thing with the simulator earlier. These are not technical limitations. These are social limitations. We don't have simulation gameplay in EVE right now because the player base has loudly rejected it in the past, not because of a technical limitation.
I don't know. I've had some pretty good response to my idea of the training room. I think.
Well, I'm just saying that when Veritas introduced or even brought up the dojo as his parting gift, it was shouted down such that it wasn't brought up again. That's for sure.
I know one
I
of
thought
the
that was a great
arguments
idea.
against the simulated mode is that people would then play EVE offline, like
No.
instant only,
Right.
and they wouldn't participate. And if it was so deep and so good that you could live in the offline mode, then it wouldn't be an MMO anymore.
But
What
it's,
if
not, it's not a
they-
place to live. It's a place to fight.
But
Right,
my
what if it was
question,
more limited?
my question for you then is, what would that person be doing if that mode doesn't exist? Because you're basically just saying, I want you to play in a mode that you don't like because I need you to be playing in it. What I recommend is that we need to make it so that EVE is, you know, if it caters to a broader group of people, which EVE, when you talk about the niche, every play style that comes out is a new like group of people that gets kind of catered to, right? So this is just kind of a bigger example of that. But if you make it so that, you know, yeah, sure, this guy only ever plays simulations. Who gives a shit? We have a dude that only plays on Discord. We have another guy that only plays on spreadsheets. It's just EVE. Let everybody play the way that they want.
If they're going to pay 15 a month for it, yeah.
All right, so I mean, we got various issues. We've got, you know, the NPE, you know, it's very limited. We've got the training room idea. We've got voice acting ideas. Like, what do we think is one thing that needs to happen now for there to be, like, holy shit, guys, holy shit, the CCP, thank you for making this happen. Like, what is this feature that we're lacking that is going to take EVE into the next 10 years?
There needs to be PVE, more PVE, and universal PVE that makes the space and the things that you're doing matter. And they need to better show off the different factions and the different personalities within it through their interactions. Voice isn't necessarily, like, voice acting is expensive, but having mechanics that make Blood Raiders interesting in some way, or, you know, Garista space valuable for a certain task, or maybe having certain activities that you go and do and then you're done, like fixing the Cosmos missions, go back and revision those to be what they were meant to be, which are, you know, basically stories that you can experience and walk away from. You know, if they make it so that you feel as if I moved somewhere else, life would be different, then that would be good. In EVE, you know, you have your bands of space, but any given null is kind of any other null. If they made it so that being a Mimitar PvEer is different than being a Galentian PvEer, I think that would go a long way in making the universe feel like there's more to do.
The
I
Blood
think the
Raider
plan, yeah, is to make the
complex
Blood
is-
Raider for everybody.
Yes,
Yeah.
well, right. The Blood Raiders is a step in that direction, but my problem is that, I'll be honest with you, with all of the events coming out and how they've always done this kind of universal distribution and how much they've avoided that kind of thing. Like, I like the Blood Raiders. It's a step in the right direction. I don't think it's enough. And I hope it becomes a bigger step. Just like the LARP.
No,
right? That
we
was a good
think they're
step
going to
too.
deploy that AI to all of the other
Yeah,
AI,
it's
and then
gonna-
it's going to be every NPC.
It's going to
Sure.
go around from system to system. They're going to have every pirate faction is going to have that as it goes around, but this is just where they're starting it.
Right, but my point is that other things too. Like, for instance, I wrote an article a long time ago that says that what I recommend is all Sisters of EVE combat missions be removed from the game. It doesn't make any sense that Sisters of EVE are hiring us to shoot people. They're a humanitarian organization. Instead,
Or so
what they should
want us to
do
think.
is what?
Or so they want us to think.
Right, but what they should do instead is they should make these different discoverables in various relic and data sites. And then when you discover them, depending on the band of space, you can then launch a science deployable and put this discoverable in it. And it cooks for a period of time, depending on the band of space. And then once that's done, you can return that as a success for the mission, effectively, to the Sisters of EVE. So now the Sisters of EVE have loyalty points. They have missions, effectively. They have everything that everybody else does, but their stuff is surrounded around exploration. And you could take this to other groups too. You know, each race has their focuses, and it would make sense if our interactions with, especially the pirates, revealed their various interests and motivations.
I like
I
that.
think that is awesome, and
Yeah.
that is very high hopes, and I would love to see it, the other side, I think, of the coin, going into the PvE, not just interactive and all the PvE stuff, but just a little more risk and reward. I think there are a lot of good content drivers and a lot of kind of factories for warfare right now, but we need a few more changes and a few more things in the pot that make it a little riskier and a little more reward, like the asset safety system and war decks and things like that.
I honestly, for me, I think not really just the lore, but the storytelling aspect of it. Like, when the Caroline Star came about and the drifters were coming in, there was just like so much happening. And I was actually telling people in real life, like, hey, man, you got to check out this game. Like, there's this crazy event happening right now where this star is going nova and we're trying to figure out what it is. And people are like, trying to formulate theories. And it just felt at that point, during that few months, it felt very immersive to me and very interactive.
I feel really bad because what I suspect happened was a 2-year plan hit a bug at around the drifter incursions time that suddenly made it into a 4-year plan. And the story was already pretty well committed. And so when they had to pull back and restructure, because if you notice, they didn't really do much when it came to drifter AI. In fact, CCP Affinity, who was one of the lead people for the drifters, if you remember, she was actually she
wrote most of the lore for it.
Yeah, well, she did the lore and she was like the content team that worked on them. She actually moved to Team Genesis when that was formed. And that's also one of the reasons why some of the faction warfare changes that were supposed to happen last year kind of got dropped, I believe. And then, of course, the drifter AI has now been repurposed to being this new AI, which is really what it was meant to be in the first place, right? But the point that I'm trying to say is that they had plans of the drifters continuing to proceed. They even said that we were going to potentially be able to work with or against the drifters and their motivation by the time of summer last year, right?
But
again,
wasn't it?
Yeah. You're right. It was the year before. It 2 years. No, it would have been last year because it was the Vegas before that. So it was 2 Vegases ago that they said next summer. So that would have been last year's summer.
I'm pretty sure it was.
We got really mad at Warmo Space because of
Either
that.
way.
Because they said they were keeping adding bits to it, and then they never did.
Right. So the point is that there is some promise to it in the fact that when it came to their tease with the PVE, as I mentioned, I think last time when we were talking about FanFest, the one piece of information in the tease is the fact that they teased the pickup sticks, which is a clearly drifter object. So I suspect we're going to see that plot advance.
Yeah, I think what really grind my gears though was the fact that they're using the drifters as the protagonist in the NPE, and you get out into game antagonist. I think you go out to game proper, and where's drifters? Nobody cares about drifters. It's a non-issue.
I think that what they're doing is the plot right now is we are in Game of Thrones and there's no one on the wall right now.
Yeah.
Like Makoto Priano is Jon Snow trying to tell us that the drifters are coming and they're going to kill us all. And everyone else is bickering about their politics and trying to kill each other with plagues. But the drifters are coming and they're getting ready. Just because we haven't done anything about it yet doesn't mean anything.
Really disappointing thing is they put drifters in wormhole space that are different from the case-based ones, and they're the most boring, farmable thing in the planet that is so easy to exploit the mechanic. It's not even funny.
Well,
You don't even have to fight them with ships anymore. You can fight them with citadels.
Going back to what Ash said about, having hit a bug and then suddenly the timeline is delayed, I think part of the bug they ran into is that initially they made the drifters too hard and it dissuaded everybody from going into it. So then they turned around and nerfed them and they introduced the quick response fleets that don't have the DD. And it was kind of their way of saying, let's roll out the red carpet and make them easier to kill because please come engage with this content that we spent all this time developing. And people have kind of cooled on the idea, but they don't have to leave that alone. They don't have to drop that off.
I really hope that doesn't happen with the new Blood Raider shipyards. And I hope once they do hit their stride with some of these PvE additions and all these iterations of things like that, that we'll start seeing them more frequently and get that kind of content.
I think
love it or hate it, the reason why they put it in Blood Raiders is because the goons are there and they will farm it, they will engage it, and they will test it. And
I honestly think it might have been a happy accident because we knew that the Blood Raiders were going to be the next Capitals back in October. And I think that just got delayed because they wanted to be able to test out this new content distribution for them.
Well, there's talk of the next AT ships being Guristas, so they could have gone that way too.
Well, they specifically said that the next ships after this are going to be Guristas, I think.
Right. This year is going to be Serpentis themed. They haven't said anything about points, but the theme does play along with whatever the prize ships are.
Serpentis, yeah. Sorry.
Well, the new Guristas skins would actually add credence to that as well. You know, the idea that these are coming down the line. And I like what you said earlier, Ash, about the idea of having that AI adjusted to the personalities of the individual factions and changing PVE. Because it would be really cool to be able to go and run Guristas missions and do piracy, like hitting Kaldari, you know, and specifically trying to loot certain types of things for the mission, or going into Guristas and doing strategic strikes on tactical targets, or Mordu's Legion, and so on.
Yep. And also, you can also reflect their personality through other methods. Another article that I wrote that I'm really proud of, so I'm going to pimp out, was about standings, because a lot of people are talking about how we should remove standings altogether. And I think that would be one of the worst mistakes that they could do. Because the problem is that, like, we want to feel like there's permanency, but our standing situation is so rudimentary. That's the problem. It's not the fact that standings aren't valuable. It's that our standing system is garbage. You can't, there's no, like, there's only one real simple way to gain it. Not every standing system can gain it that way. But it's, you know, well, I'm not even going to explain it, but, you know, it's pretty much garbage. If you tank it, it's hard to recover. If you could make it so that standings really felt more like I've done stuff for these guys, and so I've gotten better stuff for it, like a really good reputation system, as you would expect it, then you could actually show off some personality, right? Like, for instance, maybe the Sancha doesn't even, like, become friendly to you at all until you're like pot +8, because they just don't trust outsiders. They're fiercely paranoid. Or maybe the Serpentis don't give a shit, and they'll never, you know, they'll let you dock in their stations even if you're neg 10, especially in Tortuga.
Make it reflect more like the shifting alliances and relationships that happen in shows like The Expanse, where the Belters are never really going to trust you if you're not a Belter, but you might get on the good side of a few of them.
Right. And then what you can do is you could introduce special perks, like maybe the Guristas have smuggler gates that you can gain access to, or you know, the Blood Raiders may have uses for corpses that you can unlock, or, you know, whatever. And then, like, additionally, like at its highest level, what I thought was, you know, let's say somebody with super high negative goes and rats in a sanctum or whatever. Well, the Blood Raiders that are under attack realize that this is like a public enemy #1, and so sends out a distress beacon. So if you're +8 to Blood Raiders and you're within the constellation, you receive the signature, the ship type, and the weapon that's being fired of the person, the signature, the system, the ship type, and the weapon being fired.
That would be cool.
Or the opposite of that, if you're mining or ratting in an area where you're friendly to an NPC and, like, someone tries to gang you, now those NPCs who you are in good standings with will help you and attack your enemy.
Right.
Yeah. And factions granting you the ability to have shortcuts through space could be a good mid-stance between now and what we have now and player-owned Stargates. So if you're going to provide the ability to travel, you know, to either new space or increase travel in space, you can do that by giving us a midpoint and saying, let us take advantage of those smuggler gates and go to regions maybe we couldn't normally access.
Right. I like it.
We don't need more regions. We need less space.
But additionally, like, you could do other things too. Like, for instance, maybe skins can be purchased only when you're at certain standings, right? So, like, let's say I can purchase any Sorum skin, but I have to have 8.0 with Sorum. Now now if I grind up Sorum standings, I'm not just accessing that loyalty point store, but I'm also, now I can become a Sorum brander, right? You can come to me for my not Aurum anymore, my Miniplex is worth a little bit more because I can buy this thing that I can only buy because I've done this other thing.
Right.
Right. Ash, one thing you said yesterday was that people should fall in love with EVE before they discover the metagame.
Optimally.
How do you guys think we can achieve that? Because I tell you what, I didn't fall in love with the game until I actually went and researched, and I went to look for the metagame before I actually started really playing.
The thing is that there's so much about EVE to love. One of the things that it has going for it is just how great it is to look at. And I firmly believe that we overestimate how quote-unquote boring rats are or whatever. They're confusing maybe, but they're not necessarily boring. And so I think kind of just having that time where you help the player appreciate stuff, or, you know, allowing players to kind of decompress, look around, and kind of give people, like, I think that the best moments in Inception are actually like landing at the fleet that's getting ready to be formed and the big fight at the end, because those are the kind of the things that inspire you, that make you think, okay, yeah, this is a game I want to play. And it also goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is that I'd like to be able to dig into it. Like when you see that fleet array in front of you, I'd like to see a beacon at each of those ship types. And then if you fly over to that beacon, then maybe it gives you a little bit more information about that ship type that lets you say, okay, well, you've investigated. Here's a reward with a little bit more information. If you want to, you can fly right past it. But, you know, sorry, I got lost on that, so I'm just going to give up the mic.
No, I like that idea. That's really excellent.
I have the solution. Here it is.
Okay,
Ready? CCP wants player-generated everything. We want more missions. We want more engagement with the metagame. Bring all three together, mix them together. What do you have? You have player-made missions about the alliances and corporations of EVE. Player submitted. Get them vouched for or filtered in some way. But PL wants you to run some sort of mission. Mercenary Coalition wants you to go kill a frigate in LowSec. Adrian Robotics wants you to complete 3 faction warfare plexes. The Goons want you to complete 1 haven in Blood Raider space.
That's actually not a half bad idea.
That's a
The only
great
thing
idea.
is, you'd have to be very careful to avoid that being harassment, because I want you to kill Kael Decadence over and over again,
I can
for
see
the
that.
next 6 months. No, something like that is harassment, you know.
Well, just
by the way,
chit-chat. Just
Doable
chit-chat.
now, though, if
No,
you-
he's saying
that's-
like a map creator, like you create your own site essentially.
Well, it sounds to me like branded missions, effectively. So, and that actually goes back to something I wanted to say earlier, which is that CCP actually has done quite a bit to allow people to naturally trend towards groups, or at least allow us to advertise, in specifically the Jumbotron, right? I think that it's a really cool idea, and my concern with it is that it risks falling into the same problem where if it's given the same half-assed love that everything else in EVE is, it may not do very well, right? Like if I have to keep watching Vote Steve for CSM 12 for the next 6 months, we have a significant problem. But if they get rid of it in the next couple of weeks and they keep recycling it, then that's great. I'm actually pleased to note that allegedly FedUp now has an advertisement on the Jumbotron, which I'm really excited about. But I've watched the Jumbotron for 20 minutes plus, and I haven't seen it yet. And so I think that on the one hand, I'm not trying to say that there's necessarily a huge problem with it, because I think that the mechanic is super good. And I think that it's another one of those things that we underestimate, because a lot of people just sit around, and learning, discovering, and creativity come from those moments of boredom. If we can hook people in the game and convince them that being part of EVE is interesting enough to commit, then they're going to go through those periods of, like, when you're ratting and you're kind of going through the mindless portion, and they begin to experiment with things like cameras and controls and understanding kind of the depth of things a little bit more. Or maybe I'm going to figure out how to do my damage types this time, or, that's the kind of environment in which people can creatively explore themselves. In the same way, the Jumbotron just kind of sits there casually in the background. It doesn't ask you to pay attention to it, but it's there when you're ready. And eventually something's going to catch somebody's eye, and then they're going to go, I want to know more about that. And I think that that's something that we need to continue to play with, not necessarily say CCP should be telling people you must go to Signal Cartel, but just continue to give us opportunities to brand ourselves.
Yeah, I don't think they should do that, but I think there should be more visibility of how to get to these things.
Yep.
They don't have to vet one certain corporation, but if they knew, like, hey, if you're into doing these things, here's a list of corps that might be
Right.
associated
A way
with
to
these.
interact with those kinds of content, whether it's an information system for finding a corp, whether it's an event, whether it's emergent PVE, whatever it is.
Yeah,
they said they're redoing the website for some information like that, but like I don't know how deep they're going to go with it.
Yeah, like if the corp finder was revamped to where it shows like, what are you trying to do? Exploration. Okay. Brrr, here's a list of exploration corps. Are you trying to do mining? Brrr, that's what it does. I mean, not the whole checkbox. Do you want to do this, or that? Like, we do everything.
That reminds me. Speaking of like information at EVE and them not pushing it and new websites, did you guys? There's a new lore website. They launched it. They relaunched the entire lore portal. Did you even know?
Yep.
Nope.
Yep.
Okay. Well, good. Hey, that was a lot more yeses than I was expecting.
I think I knew because
I think we're too connected to be a good poll audience.
I think I got an email. I think there's an email that went out. But
Yeah, I got the email.
Yeah, I was tracking.
But yeah, no, there is a larger website revamp going on, and that's the thing that's kind of reassuring about all of this, which is that all of the concerns that we're bringing up here are all things that within about the last year, CCP have said that they're tracking and kind of working on. I think my biggest concern was that FanFest either showed that like it's a lot harder than they thought, or it brought concern that they weren't quite as focused as they needed to be, or didn't necessarily have as solid of a grasp of it as I would hope.
Right. There are lots of things that they're working on, but they're working on all of them slowly and not necessarily effectively to focus.
Well, I don't blame them either, because I mean,
I don't either, but
you only get one shot. It's not like, as I like to tell, one of the things I like to say a lot, especially in these kinds of podcasts, because it's extremely easy to sit in the back and just throw popcorn.
Right.
Much harder to actually design this shit. Like, one of the things that we all need to remember is that there is no perfect version of EVE that already exists that they're building towards, right? There is no map. There is no anything. In fact, any games that we use as a way of trying to like leverage a concern or like leverage an argument, often with the EVE community is rejected, because we're so, the EVE community is often so
super bitter,
jaded. Yeah, jaded from like just gaming in general, not just EVE, but free to play traps or anything like, they're quick to be suspicious.
On the plus side, though, a lot of the problems that were slowing them down for many years was the technological issues of just really poor design of the game and really poor programming, where they literally have spent about 5 years like unmessing up total spaghetti code and bad design decisions from like 10 years ago. Right. And they're finally getting to the point where they're actually almost completely past all those decisions because the technological side has been fixed. So the content side is coming now.
And that's what worries me right there, is the fact that for the last 3 years, that has been the narrative. And you know what? We've bought it, hook, line, and sinker, right? We all agree, and we all know that the old code's horrible, that the new team is trying to figure it out, and that slowly but surely through everything from brain in a box to the new command bursts to capitals to citadels, all of these things are just trying to deal with the system that they were given to. And we are now on the precipice of kind of like, okay, well, now you fix those. So what are you doing with it? Where are we going with this? And this goes back to like my comment about no skins being shown off. We were so like, for the last year and a half, we've been talking about the limitations of the skin system, and now they're showing off how great the new skin system is. And yet we don't seem to actually be getting skins faster, which troubles me, because the only reason why we weren't before was because there was a problem.
It's kind of like, let's untangle all the power cords, let's fix all the tools, let's clean up the shop, and then, okay, we're done. What are we going to build?
Right. So we're now at that point where it's like, okay, they've done all the stuff that they got to do, and all that's great. Like, we kind of have a perfected version of EVE, what it should have been maybe 2 years ago.
We're not quite there though, because structures and in particular corporation permissions are tied into POSs and stations. That's the biggest hurdle, because you have to change it at the same time to completely mess up like corp permission.
There's
You're
also
absolutely right.
There's also some really long legacy issues around things like local chat, which is core and fundamental thing in the game that like you can't change that without breaking everything else.
Yes, I'm not trying to say that everything is absolutely fixed. You're right. Perfected form is definitely the wrong term.
We could talk for hours about the things that we believe could be fixed or needs to be addressed in old code. It's probably better to focus on the things that we like. And one of the things that I don't like, which goes in line with everything we've discussed tonight, is the fact that Ghost has been extremely nebulous about giving us any kind of idea what his hard strokes are. We've got the story, we've got the guidance, we've got the idea around the narrative direction of EVE, but none of the hard, broad strokes are there.
We're doing something, but we're not sure what it is, or at least we're not going to tell you.
Yeah. And here's the thing that remains optimistic, which is that we've really had a huge pullback of information over the last 4 months. I would say that the information that we got from CCP prior to Ascension was probably about 2 to 3 magnitudes higher than what it is now, right? We have much lower idea of like what's on the game plan. We only have even broad strokes for summer. By this time last year, we knew. Well, actually, we were just about to hit, or we were just post Citadel, so it's a little bit different. But my point is that Vegas was about the spring expansion. You know, was about Citadel, which was effectively the summer expansion of that year. So, in contrast, we are living in an information void, and you saw this actually start late in the year, where they were like, "Well, we're just waiting." We're just holding off on Ascension stuff. And then at the beginning of the year, they're like, we're just starting new stuff. And then this year, and then even at FanFest, they're like, here's some images. So the question then becomes, are they really going to deliver? Yeah. And the thing that makes me hopeful is the fact that if you were to do a major, massive PVE rework to the magnitude that I have in my mind, which effectively makes it so that, you know, you may leave the legacy systems behind, like missions and stuff, but effectively no one ever has to do any of those because there's better, different experiences to engage in, right? If they were to do that, you wouldn't want to talk about that now. You'd want to keep that in your pocket probably about as long as you possibly could.
Surprise.
Yeah, so you know, the fact that it's being teased, and even like some of the questions that they ask, my knee-jerk response to CCP Ghost asking what do we feel that they should teach is probably asking the wrong people in an odd way for the various reasons I said before. But at the same time, I just lost my train of thought. Crap.
Well, one of the reasons for the information void, I think, relative is that, especially with industry changes and structures with Citadel, we got information overload. Because in particular, when they first started announcing the industry changes, people went a bit crazy because they announced them wrong. And then people got really frightened about how they were about to wreck the entire game. So then they got really quick. No, they got really quick on like, oh, actually, no, here's all the information. Here's it correct. And they spam the living daylights of how infrastructure and industry and like structures were going to change. And we were like, oh, actually, yeah, that seems okay. And then it just got void again, you know.
Well, okay, so going back to what I was saying, the thing is that you don't want, like, you want Citadels to be kind of boring by the time they get out, because you don't want people that are building the things or putting them out or whatever to feel like they're playing with something new. You want people to be comfortable with them before they are a toy in the sandbox, as it were. With PvE, if they were to like do extensive testing of all of the stuff, if it isn't like 100% dynamic or something super crazy, then it's going to be stale by the time it even is released. Like, it would be better to be like, hey, look, here's this, you know, there's this new Dickensian wonderland for you to play in. And then just kind of let people loose on it. So I think
if it's on Sissy for 6 months, nobody will care.
Right, exactly. So they have still said the correct things, talking about captain's quarters or command centers, and tying people to content and different content distribution systems and different reward distribution systems. These are the kind of things that you want your designers to be talking about as they're designing a PvE experience. So they're saying all the right things. Let's just hope. I guess we just have to hope.
All right then.
What just happened? Yes, Ashterothi fell off. Anyways.
What? No.
We just stopped talking.
Oh, I said you just have to hope. Sorry,
Oh.
I meant to just drop the mic.
Oh,
I don't know.
I didn't see the mic.
Sorry.
So yeah.
I can't drop my mic. It's on a stand.
So yeah, I mean we've talked about a lot of stuff about some of our personal problems we have with this thing or that thing, what we think we got to do to fix it. Wow, we went through the gambit, but just like Ash kind of hit upon, like, we haven't seen anything. We don't know what's going on. So you've got a lot of podcasters, a lot of streamers, a lot of people in the meta who are just at this point speculating, and we don't really know what's next. So hopefully within the next few weeks, maybe after this next update, we'll hear something.
I think we're all waiting for the opportunity to be surprised like we were when Carolyn Star happened.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not looking for the Jesus feature, but I'm looking to actually be able to talk about EVE and go, yo, friend in real life, check this out. This is what's going on right now. You should play this game because this.
So,
ripping chunks out of moons and then blowing them up.
Interesting PvE would be a Jesus feature if it was really good, though, and widespread.
Here's the thing.
I think they're working towards it. It's just, like we said, we have to hope that it does come, because they've started introducing these interactive, like if you look at the mining fleets, and now you look at the Blood Raiders, like what's the step after that once they introduce that as a newer PvE system?
Well, okay, so here's the thing. Where you go from here actually quickly becomes answered if you actually can make this, right? Like, if they can make a decent PvE, if they can make high-sec interesting, for example, because they've said that this PvE expansion is going to be mostly focused on high-sec, which makes a lot of sense. So you provide a whole bunch of, like, we're going to call it phase 1 content. So phase 1 content, you're in your known universe, you do that kind of stuff, and then you develop your stories. You have your inception, you have various tasks, factions you can join part of, story to unravel, so on and so forth. Then eventually, once all of the structures are put together and they've managed to figure out how to make it all work, then we discover the drifters have some sort of way to open up a wormhole back to Jove space. And we make it to Jove space, and we unlock it over time, or however we do it. And basically it is abandoned, rotting, derelicts of Jove society, which allows us to plunder it for advanced technology, and there's exploration stuff. But most importantly, there are no safe stations anywhere, and that everything there has to be built by players. And then from there, we can build and maybe figure out what happened to the Talican and see if we can track them down. My point is that the lore at least points to effectively endless expansion content if they can just get their feet underneath them.
Right. So, anywho, I think we're going to start wrapping it up with that. Yeah, hopefully we find out something more. I would hate to be let down any more than I already have. But right now, we don't really have a fail of the week, but we're going to start wrapping up some stuff. Actually, Joe Barnacle wanted to come online and talk about something that's coming up in October. It's a little bit of ways away, but better to start wrapping it now.
Yeah, I just going to come on and talk a bit, for 2 or 3 minutes, maybe even less, about EVE Dublin. In case anyone doesn't know, I've been running EVE Dublin for 2 years now. This will be the 3rd year, and I've moved it from a 1-day pub meet to a 2-day kind of conference type meet in a big venue and whatnot. It's coming up on October 20th and 21st, and the website is evedublin.com. We've actually got like devs coming over, and we're running like tournaments and like poker tournament and lore quiz and a bunch of other content, and like giving T-shirts away and like drinks and stuff. So if anyone like is listening is from like the Ireland, UK, or even European area, like Ryanair in particular does flights to Ireland for like €20. It's nearly cheaper to get here from the EU from anywhere in Ireland. So I hope people are interested in like coming along and check out the website, because it's really fun to like talk to other EVE players and meet them and shoot shit about the game.
Awesome. That sounds like fun. They can pretty much get tickets. Is it cost anything?
€20 for the tickets.
Right,
Is it has to cover like venue costs and like the T-shirts and some of the prizes and stuff.
Right, and you can get those tickets on evedublin.com.
Yep.
Cool. All right, I believe Nikolai also has an event he wants to pimp out real quick.
Right. Mine is just in game, but basically we have taken over the March of the New Bro, and we have a Discord and a channel set up, but we're running the first week. It's going to be a week-long event. We'll go from Saturday to Saturday, so it'll be a full 8 days of just new player-focused events. So there'll be NPSI rooms. There'll be lots of classes from like Agony Unleashed, EVE Uni, RVB. If anybody wants to get in on those, find a way to contact me.
Right,
my name is up on there.
Is there
So
an in-game
just
channel?
contact me in-game or on Twitter or anywhere.
You have an in-game channel?
Yes, New Bro Events.
New
Bro, one word, and then second word is events.
Got it. All right, and actually for myself, I'm hosting the second annual EVE Fort Hood area meetup, and that will be not this coming Saturday, but the next Saturday, which is the 13th. So if you're in the greater Fort Hood area, so Coppers Cove, Colleen, even as far as Austin, I think isn't too bad. It's like an hour and a half. Waco, etc. We're going to have it next Saturday, the 13th at 1900 local time to Colleen, obviously. Should be a good time. It's going to be at the Bit Bar, but I've got details on that if you want to get linked up on that. Merdad, are you having an event too? Are you having a bar meetup? I don't know.
Well, Jurius might have details of that.
Oh.
Yeah, so Meredith and I actually first met at the local Vancouver meetup, which I've just taken over coordinating now. So that happens the third Tuesday of every month in New Westminster, if you live in the Greater Vancouver area. And we have a Facebook group set up, as well as a new ad going up on evemeet.net. So if anybody happens to be listening and you happen to be in the Seattle or Vancouver area, come on by.
Yeah, we have a great attendance there. It's a good time.
Okay, so I think we're about the end of that. For those of you who have not been on the show or listened before, so what we'd like to do near the end of the show is talk about, just real quick, 30 seconds of a show we've been watching, a podcast we've been listening to, book we've been reading, something that we think other people might like. For myself, I just started watching season 2 of The Expanse. I know I'm a little late in the game, but yeah, you know, when I have kids, I kind of have to wait until things come out on DVD or Amazon is usually where I get my TV shows, and I watch them in the mornings before I go to work. So, Expanse season 2, so far so good. Meredith?
Oh, I was going to use my shout out to pimp out Theomachy, which is an in-game event that just got announced. Yeah, you got to register for it. It was just posted on Reddit today, but I heard great reviews for it last year. I didn't get to participate because I was oblivious to it last year, but it is an event held on Thunderdome where you pretty much Hunger Games around to all these beacons.
Yep.
And there's a patrol staff that like controls the action. There are events that occur at the beacons. You can't make mid-safe warps. You can't warp to the gates. You can't leave the system. You can only fight at these beacons, and you can like band up with a couple guys. You can fight for your modules. You can refit, like kill somebody, take their fit, shove it onto your ship, and then go steal a better ship. Like
Gangster.
Lots of jumping in and out of pods, and you're only out when you get podded. So you're not dead. You can reship multiple times. Apparently, it's a great time.
Yeah, and you got till the 25th of May to register for this event. and I linked the information from Reddit on the chat. But yeah, Theomacy, Theomacy. Dope.
I think it's brought to you by EVE and some other people.
All right, Ashterothi, what kind of philosophical shit you reading this week?
Actually, this week has been philosophical D&D. No, I rediscovered Planescape. For those of you who don't know, that's a campaign setting for D&D 2nd edition, in which you like go to the various afterlives and like elemental planes and inner planes, like where all the weird stuff is. And I just loved it when I was a kid. I always felt that was kind of like the height of what D&D needed to be, just like total whimsical, where the laws of reality may not necessarily exist in any given time. And so I have fallen back in love with that and have been digging through all of that. There's all these new conversions now to 5th edition. So even though the official stuff hasn't ever been done, unofficially a whole bunch of conversions have been done. So that's been exciting.
Nice. That sounds pretty cool. All right, let's see. Joeseph Barnacle, do you have any 30-second pimp out?
Yeah, I took a trip down memory lane to play Homeworld, the original one, recently, because I played Homeworld Deserts of Karak, and like the swelling music score. I was like, I remember this game was amazing. The space one too, and it is fantastic as I remember. It's so good.
Yeah, and if you don't know, there's actually an EVE Online mod for that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like one of the most heavily modded games ever because it was like super popular for like 10 years because it was just so good. It still is so good. They made a remastered version that's like not fantastic. They broke half the features, but like it's still good.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got that myself. Cool. Let's see who's next. Nikolai.
I have a couple that I'm being forced to read, but really like. A couple by Jared Diamond. One's called Collapse. The other is Guns, Germs, and Steel. You probably heard about them because one of them just came out in the last year, I believe. But they're really good looks at history and society and some interesting things.
Yeah, I've heard good things about Collapse.
Cool. Jurius Doctor.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I've gone old school in my disappointment to not being able to get a Nintendo, Classic, one of the little $60 boxes, and then they canceled it. So I've been playing Final Fantasy 1 on my emulator, and there's some hardcore nostalgia going on there because I had a game at the end boss when I was like 10 years old, and my brother saved over the only save slot by starting a new game. So here it is 30 years later, and I'm finally working my way towards beating the game.
Cool. All right, so everyone's got some pretty cool stuff they've been doing lately. That's dope. I can't wait for more of that kind of stuff next week. So anyways, as you can probably tell, medicine's starting to kick in, and I'm starting to get a little drowsy and sleepy right now, so I don't really know what I'm doing.
Woo!
Yep, gotta love it. Doctors put me on some new stuff. Anyways, that will be the end of the show. Thank you very much for watching live. Thank you very much for downloading and listening. From myself, Kael Decadence. Appreciate you watching. And also, just in case you're listening and not watching, I'm at Kael Decadence on Twitter. Mirdud is at Mirdud_Eve. And then we have Ashterothi is at Ashterothi. Jurius is at Jurius Doctor. Joeseph Barnacle is conveniently at Joeseph Barnacle. And Nikolai is also conveniently at Nikolai Mazinkov. It's funny how those names just kind of work out. So if you have any questions or you want to find out more about some things that we talk about, just hit us up on Twitter or all that fun stuff. Oh, also, don't forget, leave a review on iTunes. Even if you just do, click a star. Just even one, give me a star. That's all we need. Leave a review. Tell us what sucks. Tell us what's cool and what you want to see more.
I promise every Friday night will not be nonstop Drake memes from my Twitter.
Like Drake the singer or Drake the ship?
Well, we had a Drake fleet. We had a Drake fleet, so I just did Drake memes and then just hazed all the people we were fighting.
That's gangster. All right, yep. So don't forget to download us on iTunes and the Crossing Zeros RSS feed, our own RSS feed. evepodcast.com, and anywhere else that you happen to find your podcast. So from myself and everyone here, thank you very much for listening, and fly crazy.